If you had the power to see 2 minutes into the future, what would you do first? I'm sure most people would answer, make money like crazy. But Chris, who lives in luxurious Las Vegas, never hits the big jackpot. He's even afraid to place large bets at the gambling tables. The reason is simple. He wants to keep his true power hidden. Because Chris can see the next 2 minutes of the future related to himself. Chris is a magician, but today, his show has very few spectators. As usual, to make a living, he heads back to the casino. But he never plays against other gamblers. He only plays against the casino. He never wins huge amounts, nor does he place risky bets. Chris believes he's doing everything perfectly. What he doesn't know is that the casino's security team has already been keeping an eye on him. Even though there's no cheating with the cards, Chris always seems to know in advance what cards he's going to get. That's what makes them suspicious. While the security team is discussing this, Chris suddenly looks straight at the camera. He immediately gets up and leaves. But when the future changes, the butterfly effect is bound to happen. While chips are being exchanged, a robber suddenly bursts inside with a gun. Security moves in, but the robber opens fire, and 2 people die on the spot. Chris had already seen this entire scene in advance, so before the shot is fired, he knocks the robber to the ground and takes away his gun. Unfortunately, at that exact moment, the security team arrives and sees the scene. Chris can't explain himself and escapes into the crowd. The chief officer is forced to order all exits closed and initiates a full search of the casino. But no matter how tight the surveillance is, they can never catch Chris. Every time, he escapes by a narrow margin. Then he steals another car and speeds away. The chief immediately informs the police and shares the vehicle's information. Within moments, police cars are chasing him. Left with no choice, Chris turns the car straight toward the railroad tracks. He slams down on the accelerator, trying to escape the police before the train passes. But because the car isn't fast enough, in the very next moment, he's thrown out of the vehicle. But that was only a future vision, one he had already seen, so he accelerates again. Although Chris manages to shake off the police, his abnormal behavior draws the attention of the FBI. In fact, 2 months earlier, Donnie had already started monitoring Chris. He suspected that Chris possessed some kind of special ability. However, his superior officer clearly tells him that they don't have time to investigate Chris right now. The reason is that 10,000 tons of nuclear weapons have gone missing from the Russian Federation, and they must be found at any cost. Still, Connie believes that Chris's ability to see the future could help them locate the nuclear weapons. Eventually, the superior officer gives Connie 5 days. He immediately tracks down the casino manager. That's when he learns that at the exact moment Chris looked at the camera, the manager was already coming downstairs to catch him. This makes it clear that whenever someone interferes in his life, Chris can sense it, and his ability to see the future is limited to just 2 minutes. Meanwhile, the police quickly track the location of the stolen car. On the other hand, Chris returns to his hideout. His partner tells Chris that he can't keep stealing cars every day and making people chase after him. He should leave this place and live a normal life. But Chris says that before, he could only see 2 minutes into the future. Then, a week ago, he suddenly saw a girl. He sees her at exactly 9:09 p.m. in a restaurant. He wants to know the reason behind this at any cost. Since that day, he has been waiting at that restaurant every night starting at 8 o'clock. In the middle of this conversation, Chris senses that a police officer is approaching. He immediately tells them to run, but Chris wants to know, what is the real intention of the person coming toward them? At that moment, Connie steps forward. She gets straight to the point and asks Chris to use his ability to see the future to reveal the location of the nuclear weapon. But Chris pretends to know nothing and says he only knows magic tricks. He refuses to agree under any circumstances. Then Connie changes her strategy. Instead of pressuring him, she offers Chris a deal. If he helps locate the nuclear weapons, all the old cases against him will be permanently dropped by morning. Hearing this, memories of Chris's childhood flash before his eyes. From as young as 3 years old, some people had carried out cruel experiments on him under the excuse of helping him. That's why he has always been cautious. But Chris's painful childhood doesn't soften Connie's heart at all. And before Connie can arrest him, Chris once again chooses to run. This time, however, it's not only the government looking for Chris. The criminals who stole the nuclear weapons are also after him. They track down the casino manager and force all information about Chris out of him. The next morning, Chris finally sees the girl at the restaurant. He imagines many ways to talk to her, sometimes trying to sit beside her, only to be firmly rejected. Sometimes he offers to buy her coffee. Sometimes he asks for a light, but the girl doesn't even smoke. Suddenly, the girl's ex-boyfriend shows up. He has been following her and wants to get back together, but she clearly says no. Gradually, the guy becomes angry. At that delicate moment, Chris steps in like a hero. He introduces himself, dodges the attack, and gives the jerk a solid beating. Then he performs a stylish magic trick in front of the girl. Although Chris thinks he looks very cool, the girl gets a headache. She tells both of them to sort it out among themselves and walks away. After that, Chris deliberately doesn't avoid the thug's next attack and goes down to the ground with a single punch. Seeing this, the girl immediately threatens to call the police, drives the thug away, and then comes over to help Chris up. Sometimes, pretending to be weak can be a good strategy too. Through their conversation, he learns that the girl's name is Liz. Because Chris is injured, she starts blaming herself. Chris continues the act and says his car was stolen and that he needs to take a bus to Flagstaff, near the Grand Canyon. Coincidentally, Liz is heading in the same direction. To make up for what happened, she decides to give Chris a ride. What she doesn't know is that all of this is the result of a future Chris has already seen countless times. After the two of them leave, Connie arrives at the spot with her team. The shop owners tell her that Chris used to come every morning between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., stay for a few minutes, and then leave. Today is the first time Chris has ever gone out with a girl. Even though there was no CCTV inside the shop, it's learned that they headed toward the Grand Canyon. Connie checks the surrounding cameras, and at the same time her people inform her that the casino manager was found with his throat slit the previous night. This makes it clear that it's not only the government watching Chris, someone else is after him as well. These people are the nuclear weapon thieves, who have already transported the nuclear bombs to a port and completed the full assembly there. Even though Chris's ability to see the future seems unbelievable, they decide that to keep their plan completely secure, Chris must be eliminated at any cost. Meanwhile, after a long journey, Chris and Liz arrive at a Native American reservation. Liz had come there for Jack's birthday, but on their way back, heavy rain floods the road, forcing them to turn back. With no other choice, they check into a hotel. Even though a single man and a single woman are staying in the same room, neither of them takes advantage of the situation. Chris lights the fireplace and then goes outside to sleep in the car. When Liz sees Chris sleeping in the car wrapped in a blanket, she suddenly feels a deep sense of guilt for no reason. The next morning, Chris comes back into the room. This time, Liz is much more open than before. As their conversation flows, Chris performs a special magic trick, making a rose using only his fingers, which breaks down Liz's final emotional wall. Naturally, the two grow even closer, but they have no idea that two different groups have already surrounded the area. After everything settles, Liz goes outside to buy a few things. Connie keeps her eyes on the clock. The moment 2 minutes are completed, she stops Liz. She introduces herself and shows Liz the casino's CCTV footage. Seeing this, Liz completely breaks down and can't accept the truth for a while. Just then, an agent pulls out a vial. If this drug is mixed into water, Chris will lose consciousness within 5 minutes, making it easy to capture him. Liz is specifically warned that before adding the drug, it is crucial to keep Chris away for at least 2 minutes. Trembling with fear, Liz returns to the room, trying hard to keep her expression under control. While Chris is in the bathroom, Liz watches the clock, carefully counts exactly 2 minutes, and mixes the drug into the drink. Chris picks up the glass without any suspicion, but at the very last moment, Liz tells him the entire truth. She simply can't believe that Chris is a criminal. Even if what the agent said is true, she doesn't want Chris to be shot and killed. Hearing Liz's words, Chris says nothing at first. He observes the situation outside, then slowly turns on the TV. He turns the volume all the way up to interfere with the FBI's surveillance and asks Liz to speak quietly. When he learns that the drug takes 5 minutes to take effect, Chris immediately uses his ability. First, he switches the drinks, then he steps outside. He deliberately hides the drugged glass behind a pillar and drinks the other one he's holding. Because of this, not only does the FBI believe Chris has fallen into their trap, but he also survives an attack from a sniper hiding at a distance. After returning to the room, Chris explains everything to Liz. He tells her that he stopped the casino robber because the man was about to kill 2 people. Hearing this, Liz completely breaks down. She feels that Chris is truly a victim of a terrifying conspiracy. But in the very next moment, Chris says a sentence that is about to happen exactly as he says it. This behavior convinces Liz completely of his ability. Chris then explains that he can only see the future within 2 minutes, and only events related to himself. But after Liz entered his life, that limit was broken. He began seeing beyond those 2 minutes. That's why he searched for her. Now Liz understands that their meeting was no coincidence. Chris must have used his power. He explains that at first, he only got close to her to understand the reason behind it. He never plotted to set her up. Once Liz calms down, She asks why the FBI is looking for him. Chris tells her the truth, that it involves national security, but even he can't do much about it. He gives Liz $10,000 and tells her to leave the area for a while. After setting everything in order, Chris leaves behind a letter. He tells her to follow the instructions in the letter exactly 45 seconds after he leaves. If she waits for him, he promises he'll return within a month. Meanwhile, Connie senses that something is wrong and learns that Chris has left the room. The moment 45 seconds are up, Liz opens the letter, and at that exact moment, Chris jumps off the mountain. The agents immediately spring into action, and a terrifying chase begins. While fleeing, Chris suddenly senses the presence of a sniper somewhere far away. He twists his body and narrowly avoids the bullet. At that exact moment, following the plan, he rams a nearby water tank with a car. This triggers a chain reaction of events. The agents are forced to take cover behind trees, while Chris flawlessly avoids one obstacle after another, slowing down their pursuit. But as soon as he reaches the main road, he sees that Connie is already there. Chris knows Connie won't shoot him. In the end, Chris is arrested. Being a good person turns out to be his greatest weakness. As soon as the FBI takes Chris away, the terrorists abduct Liz elsewhere. At the base, Chris is fitted with a special control mask. Connie first thanks him, then brings up the nuclear bombs. No matter how cruel her actions may seem, she believes everything she's doing is for America's freedom. Chris realizes that if he agrees to Connie's terms, he'll be strapped to that chair forever, with no chance of freedom. As soon as the mask is put on, he stares at the TV screen. In an instant, countless future visions flash rapidly before his eyes. Eventually, they stop at a scene of the kidnapping. In the news footage, Liz is blown apart in an explosion within moments. The scene is so horrifying that even the reporters can't clearly capture it. Chris can't bear it. He desperately begs Connie to let him go and promises that he'll fully cooperate. Seeing the situation, Connie orders the soldiers to take Chris to prison. But the soldiers know nothing about Chris's ability. In a split second, Chris shocks everyone. They don't even get a chance to counterattack. Chris escapes. Connie chases him relentlessly. But when she reaches a parking lot, she finds Chris waiting there for her. This is the location of Liz's explosion. Everything becomes clear. Connie realizes that their real plan was to use Liz as bait to kill Chris. Now, only cooperation between the two of them can turn the game around. Connie immediately shuts down all nearby signals. Chris has only one task: to force the shooter to reveal his position. Although not all agents have arrived yet, the shooter has already been waiting on the rooftop. The moment he spots his target, he pulls the trigger without hesitation. Chris falls to the ground. The shooter doesn't fire a second shot. He immediately tries to call his boss, but the call doesn't go through. At that moment, a helicopter appears from behind. The shooter attempts to return fire, but he is killed on the spot. After the operation ends, Chris slowly gets back up from the ground. Although the shooter couldn't be captured alive, he also wasn't able to pass on any information. That means they still have some time. But Chris realizes that no matter how much of the future he can see, death can't be stopped unless action is taken in advance. After that, Chris uses his ability once again to track down the vehicle used to kidnap Liz. Connie immediately orders the license plate to be checked. Just in time, Connie locks onto their location as they arrive at the dock. Connie gives everyone strict orders. During this operation, everyone must follow Chris's instructions without question. The operation begins immediately. At Chris's command, Connie blows up a mailbox with a single shot, causing the vehicle to flip over. Taking advantage of the chaos, Liz manages to escape, but because of the confusion at the scene, she hides inside a nearby warehouse. Chris continuously directs the entire operation, trying to minimize damage as much as possible. This kind of high-intensity strategy leaves the criminals no chance to counterattack. Unfortunately, the enemies manage to find Liz again and take her onto a ship. Chris advances directly with the team. Connie and the others can only place unconditional trust in him, and because of that, they avoid danger again and again. Thanks to Chris's extraordinary ability to see the future, they overcome every crisis. Gradually, the team's coordination grows stronger, but inside Chris's mind, he has died countless times. The only difference is that each time, he managed to change the path. He once again identifies the sniper's position, eliminates the threat, and sends the others to search the bag, while he takes responsibility for the lower level himself. Using his ability, he carefully checks every corner and finally pinpoints the enemy's location. Once the team reunites, they stop the enemy. Even though the enemy is holding a hostage, Chris doesn't panic at all, because he has already seen the outcome. Although they succeed in rescuing Liz, the nuclear bombs have already been transported elsewhere. Connie then shows Chris a map and asks him to mark the most likely explosion sites. At that moment, Chris suddenly senses something strange. He realizes he has made a terrible mistake. That mistake was the butterfly effect of changing the future. In fact, up until now, Chris had been lying in bed the entire time. Everything that happened was just a future he had seen. The real reality begins from this very moment. This time, Chris himself contacts Connie and agrees to cooperate. His only condition is that Liz must not be involved in any way. The time limit for Chris and Liz's separation remains 1 month. This is where the movie ends.